welcome everyone. I'm Christine Blanchette, and this is the Sports Doctor is In show, our very first show. And Dr. Bob Weil is the host of the Sports Doctor, and we are having our first show today. And Dr. Bob, isn't it great to have our first show?
Yes, it is. After all these shows we've traded, now I know how to pronounce your last name. Blanchette. Yes, absolutely. It's definitely something that I'm excited about, Christine, and I wanted to be able to share some of the history of the Sports Doctor and the Sports Doctor's In. I'm celebrating over 40 years somehow of being on the radio, maybe having, I don't know, 1,000 guests over the years, participating as a guest on shows like yours, the Run With It, where we have a Sports Doctor is In segment, and talk about some of the reasons that I'm still doing it, and the fact that we want to be able to expose through a new outlet this excitement of YouTube, and be able to include some of these different things that you include on your show. You're the producer of Run With It. You interview celebrities, you talk with people in the world of fashion, you talk with people in the world of nutrition, and those kinds of topics are common topics that we featured over the years on the Sports Doctor. So in the late 70s, Christine, I was very, very fortunate to meet recently the late Bob Guida. Bob was a former Mr. America, Mr. Universe, who went on to become a very, very prominent sports trainer, a man who worked with athletes in so many different sports, whether it was the Walter Paytons with the Bears, Jim McMahon with the Bears, John McEnroe in tennis, Tracy Austin in tennis, some of the Blackhawks, the Chicago Cubs. And Bob was enamored, among so many different things, with the role of the foot in sports, the importance of paying so much attention, whether it was proper shoes, whether it was the alignment of feet, whether it was strengthening the lower extremities. And that's how he and I got married back in the late 70s. And Bob was participating in a local Illinois radio show hosted by a Hall of Fame high school coach. And he wanted to know if I wanted to come along. We would participate in some interaction, whether it was Dick Chase was the host of that radio show, Hall of Famer. And this guy was like Johnny Carson. He could have 5 or 6 guests. He would mix them all in. He didn't know I was watching him very, very closely. And I have kept it up ever since. I spent 20 years with the famous blues jazz station WDCB, College of DuPage, Glen Ellen, Illinois, where my children grew up. And they would have specialty shows. And the Sports Doctor was one of them. I think I came on after the lawnmower show, if I remember, Christine. And we started this idea of education and the importance, again, of foot mechanics and all sorts of conditions in podiatry. Over the years, we've expanded dramatically the audience and the umbrella, as I call it, of the Sports Doctor, where we would be dealing with guests in the world of nutrition, in the world of mental training and sports psychology, in the world of physical training, all sorts of medical specialties. I don't want to say I pioneered Mind Body. We had a lot to do with holistic medicine, the inclusion of acupuncture, hands-on chiropractic. And we've included those kinds of areas. And my guesting world would include shows like yours. Talk a little bit, Christine, about your background and Run With It and some of the different concepts and guests you featured.
Well, the show is Run With It, and you've been a guest on the show, and it's always exciting to have you on. You have such a lot of knowledge, and so my show is become has grown stronger legs because of fitness entertainment. I have people who are actors who want to get fit for a scene, you know, stunt performers. And then I have covered running events, and it's something for everyone. It's really,
You got a great topic,
yeah,
fitness entertainment. I think is really that's a nice title, and it's a nice mix. Almost everybody again is interested in this whole combination of wellness and fitness and nutrition and the arts. And again, you take a look at Mick Jagger, and you're wondering, this guy is still flying all over the stage. One of my famous guests is a famous physical therapist locally, Gina Pongetti. Gina was a famous gymnast. She's been at the various Olympics writing about and talking about gymnastics, but she also was a physical therapist who would work with the touring shows that would come into Chicago, and these actors and actresses and performers who were flying all over the stage, and to keep them on the stage and try to deal with all of the different problems and concerns. So the topic of fitness entertainment, again, is a very big deal. And, every day there's something that's going on. Here we are, Super Bowl week,
yes.
and the whole idea of, Tom Brady, big topic on the Sports Doctor. 44-year-old Tom Brady, the guy's still playing quarterback. How's that evolved as we've watched athletes performing? How about Rafa Nadal in a 5.5-hour final at the Australian Open? I was talking about him 18 years ago, whether his knees would hold up. He was such an athlete in the world of tennis. So, the topics can continue to flow. How long have you done Run With It?
Since 2013, Dr. Bob.
Wow.
And as I said, the show's got stronger legs now. And I think it's, inspiring others, right? And having you, like, doing this show is so exciting. It's like the melding of minds, or,
Yes.
And your terrific guests that you've had on the show, which you had a drummer, right?
Yes. Well, the reason I had Rich Redmond, who's played with the famous bands all over the world, he's out of Nashville, and he is somebody who is a motivational speaker. He also is someone who talks a lot about drumming in the world of, again, fitness. He talked about burning 1,000 calories playing the drums, whatever it was, in an hour or so. So the fact that he would be on the Sports Doctor, and we would be talking again about not only what it takes for him to still be performing 40 years later, the exercise and strengthening of his hands, his shoulders, his back, his posture. These are the things that made Bob Guida famous. Bob Guida would talk to athletes about, you got to learn how to fall. You got to know how to land. And all of these things that would go into, I've had a couple of famous stunt performers. When you mentioned you had stunt performers on the show, I've had people from Cirque du Soleil, and the kinds of athletes that it takes. One of my hotshot, I call them the hotshot orthotics figure skaters. Whether it's the famous Evan Lysacek, who was the gold medalist. We're talking a lot about him. It's 12 years since he won the gold medal in Vancouver, British Columbia. Evan was 10 years old when I put orthotics in skates. Figure skating is at the top of the world. We just watched Nathan Chen win the gold medal in men's figure skating. I can't believe all these years later. And again, talking about what it takes with these kids so early on, training so hard, pushing the envelope, and some of the concerns about prevention of injuries, and some of the different concerns we have about the pressure on these families and these kids who might end up somehow, being Olympians. What is it like for this young defending gold medalist, I forget her, Serafin, this kid who's crashed 2 times in the slaloms, coming out of the gate all of a sudden now is dealing with these kinds of, or we talked a lot about Simone Biles. Again, mental health, the twisties. Who ever heard of the twisties? Where she at the top of the world said, I can't perform. I'm having these mental concerns. So again, these topics we're able to include in some different areas. And I talk about these guests. And so last week I had on a young magician, Jake's Magic, who's doing magic since he's 2 years old. He performs all over the country, all over the world. And he, again, talking about the physicality of being an illusionist and being a magician and getting in the zone mentally to perform. And he performs in front of businesses, again, who are talking about, what did you call it? Entertainment?
Fitness entertainment.
Exactly. So, the variety, I think, is very, very important. And what we want to have some fun with on the Sports Doctors In YouTube deal is mix in this serious education, whether you are the parents. Again, my book, hashtag Hey Sports Parents. The next title is going to be hashtag Hey Sports Parents and Grandparents. I'm included now, where again, we're talking about there's great comics in jokes in the book, hashtag Hey Sports Parents, that my co-author, Hall of Fame volleyballer, Sharky Zartman, who included her associate who had these different jokes and stick figure comedy mixed in the book. And the first one, people can get this image in their head, is someone's coming out of a stadium and everybody's ranting and raving. There's so much excitement going on. And someone says to him, man, these parents are really something. And he says back to them, what are you talking about? That's the grandparents who are making all of this noise, and et cetera. So being able to have some great education, mix it in with, again, when the Sports Doctor's In, when we talk about our inclusion on your show, Run With It, we talk about all things sports medicine, fitness, and wellness. So whether you're a weekend warrior, whether you're the parent of a superstar, whether you're the coach of very serious club sport kid athletes, or whether you are playing for the NFL, we're talking about topics that are up front and center. And we want to add some, again, some good humor and some entertainment value in these very, very important topics that pressure never ends.
Yes, so much to talk about. And I'm excited and I can't wait till we have our first guest.
Yes. Now, what does YouTube bring? I know that you have your presence on YouTube. How do you use YouTube on Run With It?
I upload it and then I share it, and then it's online and it reaches a global audience. It's wonderful platform.
Yeah, it's interesting how that's really exploded into the area, and we talk about, I had Yogi Berra's granddaughter, Lindsay Berra, in her own right, a famous sports reporter, been on my show numerous times. She's got her own podcast, Food of the Gods, where she interviews pros and great athletes and talking about, what's your nutrition program? And Yogi Berra's museum, which is in New Jersey, Museum and Learning Center. And they talk about incredible different subjects for kids, so many different topics. And one of the, she said, if there was and I had on their individual with the museum itself, and they talked about the kind of topics and the education. And one of the silver linings of the pandemic, if there was any kind of cockamamie silver lining, for example, was the explosion of online and Zoom and telemedicine and all of these different interactions that we never paid attention to. My experience with Zoom years ago was with a very famous scientist, inventor, Leo, from the CIA. And when Leo would talk about all of his intellectual property and his inventions, he said, the only way I'll discuss it online is Zoom. I said, what's Zoom? He said, it just protects all of these different areas. And now it's such a big deal. So the ability to interact face to face and share some of these different experiences, I think is an exciting venue. And these are the kinds of things that we're going to be, I think, talking about. You'll have an opportunity to pick out some past guests that we might want to include in different kinds of areas. We might have, for example, a current events where we're talking about the Super Bowl, or we're talking about Rafa Nadal and the Australian Open, or we're talking about this crazy hassle with the vaccinations between whether it's Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers, or it's one of my favorite tennis players, Novak Djokovic, how he got himself into this craziness. Get vaccinated, for gosh sake here. If you want to participate in any of these particular sporting events, or you're going to end up with these kinds of craziness. Unfortunately, we've allowed, especially in the United States, to become so political that these challenges have really, really stressed us. But what's amazing, Christine, and is that no matter who my guests have been over the pandemic 2.5 years, whatever it is, whatever their profession or vocation, wherever they are in the world, they talk about mental health. Yes. And the challenges, again, whether you are the parents of children who are in school or out of school, it's called off, it's not called off, there are masks, there aren't masks, whether it's talking with Rich Dubin, again, the publisher of Lower Extremity Review and MVP Parent Magazine. His two daughters, one's a college basketball player, his other daughter's a high school basketball player. And not only was their seasons interrupted dramatically, but it was, we're playing 3 games a week, or it's crazy, we got to get back in action. The challenges that the pandemic has exposed all of us to mentally. Yes. So these are very, very big time topics. Whether it's the injuries that we've seen because these kids had to get back into the sport too aggressively, all of a sudden, these kinds of challenges, or again, it was dealing with the injuries after they happen. And again, things like Simone Biles and the tremendous attention, the best athlete in the world, and she's got problems being able to, deal, the young tennis player who went through all of these things after she beat Serena Williams, and all of these kinds of topics. And again, overuse injuries in youth sports especially are epidemic. The overkill, both physically, your feet and ankles, your knees, your back, these problems, or mentally with parental and coach pressures on these kids. And we're going to have a lot of discussions on a lot of those different topics. Okay, we'll look forward to maybe discussing some of the upcoming guests or past guests that we've had, some of their other ideas as we both explore really, really making a big deal out of the Sports Doctors In on the YouTube world, hosted by Christine Blanchette. Did I get it right?
You did, Dr.
I
Bob.
did. All right.
I'm super excited, and stay tuned, everyone. And it's been such a wonderful opportunity to do this YouTube show.
Great. Looking forward to it, Christine.
Dr. Bob, what about your social media handles?
The handles. Yes. The people can go to sportsdoctorradio.com, Christine. If they go over to newspaper articles, they could read an array of articles on so many different topics. A lot of the exciting things we're doing with the magazines. If they go to radio shows, they can go back years. They can catch you on past shows.
Yeah.
What were the topics? Who were the guests? Local, national, international. We have a lot of followers, thousands on Twitter and LinkedIn. We have a lot of great information that we also include besides just who's on the radio, who was on. If people go to @sportsdoc, DOC radio, they can tap right into our whole Twitter world. And again, sportsdoctorradio.com, and they can find out all sorts of info. Christine, thank you.